It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Today, I want to take a look at Final Fantasy IX on the Switch. This is a remaster, and it's quite interesting to me. I actually haven't seen this remaster at all before. Final Fantasy IX was one of my favorite games growing up, and I think it'll be fun to take a look at it and see what has been changed on a technical level. Now, I've heard rumors, I'm not able to confirm this, but I have heard that the game was actually reprogrammed from scratch in the Unity engine. I am interested in checking that out. Obviously, it's possible to do that. I'm not sure why they didn't use the source code and build the project up from there, but I'm sure they have their reasons. But I would like to see on a technical level how they implemented this remaster. So I hope you all have had a great holiday season so far. I'll have to ask for you to excuse me, as I've got a nice hot chocolate here. I don't want this to go cold, so I'll be drinking this intermittently throughout our chill session today. Let's go ahead and bust open my Switch 2 here. I've picked up a couple things, and if you want, I can discuss a couple things that I've picked up here. I've also got Front Missions 1 and 2. I'm a massive robot fan. Oh man, I'm a big mecha guy. And I never got to play Front Mission 2 because it was only released in Japan on the PlayStation. And so this will be a delight, being able to play Front Mission 2, but I'm a big fan of Front Mission, the first one. So let's go ahead and bust open Final Fantasy IX and see what we've got going on here. Now, I don't know the developers. I don't know who did this. I've seen screenshots, and I believe that they've used AI upscaling for the backgrounds, which is not just the backgrounds, the environments. They're called backgrounds because that's what they are, but they're the in-game environments. And I don't know what... There's something behind me. I'm just gonna see what that says. Get that... Oh, it's a button that says staff. Okay. Alright. I want to see on a technical implementation what is different here. So, if they did redo this game entirely in Unity, it seems like they faithfully recreated the growing and shrinking of the text box as the characters speak. We have a transparent texture over the screen that's still quite low color depth. If you have a look at the pixelation around the halo around him, there's sort of a dithering. I'm not sure why they left that dithering in there, because it clashes with the overall... The visual style of this game doesn't really rely on dithering. Of course, it had some in the PlayStation era, because they couldn't help it, but because this is supposed to be new and improved, I'm not entirely sure why they would have left that dithering effect on that haloing there, on the blackout effect there. So that overhead texture is gone. It's overlay that goes over the screen. We'll just go ahead and leave them. Zidane, Zidane. It's whatever you want it to be. Let's see here. The backgrounds. Now this is a. Okay, hold on. I don't know. Okay, I kind of feel like maybe they did not use AI to upscale the backgrounds. I thought they did, based on the screenshots. I have seen the PC. There are fan HD texture packs where fans used AI to upscale the backgrounds, and that's a situation where, yes, that is an appropriate, an acceptable, and an ideal way to use AI. And that's been around for a very long time. Very, very, very long time, many years. This looks like they've just upscaled it and just sort of bilinear filtered it, which is... It's a little disappointing because the models are quite sharp. Now, the character models are being rendered very differently from the original. In the original on the PlayStation, you see a lot of jittering in the polygons because there is no float point values when it comes to the position of the vertices on the models. So all of the character models, if you've ever done a connect the dots little cartoon drawing, 3D modeling is the exact same thing as connect the dots. The dots are referred to as vertices. Good gracious Lord, slap my tallywhacker. That was a very long loading screen. Why did that loading take so long? There's not that much here to load. The 3D models, the textures did not... Oh, he's very dead right now. Well, I'm gonna steal. I stole a wrist. You got anything else for me? Is that it? I got the Mage Masher. I remember this taking somewhat longer than that to steal all that stuff, but I've gotten the Mage Masher. That's basically what I wanted. I'm just gonna see if he has anything else for me. Get some. Anything else? He doesn't have anything. Great, okay. So the finger is snapping to the positioning. This feels very mobile-minded in terms of that UI. It's very different from how it was in the original. I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying it's very mobile-minded. I don't know if there's a mobile version of this game because I haven't been keeping track of the remasters and re-releases. But again, back to the floating point positions, they did not have float points. So a float is basically a decimal value. Let's say, for example, you know, if you're counting dollars, $1 is $1, 2, 3, 4, $2.50 would be 2.5, and 2.5 would be a float, whereas 2 would be an integer. And when I say integer, that is the data type for the number, and a float has more accuracy because you can have decimal points. If you had a system of currency where you didn't have floats, everything would be $1, $2, $3, $4. You would not be able to have an item that costs $4.50 because you don't have float values. You only have integer values. So the original PlayStation did not have decimal points when it came to the vertices, which is why the character models are all jittery and they shake because they don't have float values. Any other platform you'll see does have float value, well, anything after the PlayStation. So you can see that all of the polygonal jittering is gone, so it's very pleasant to look at. Some people implement that jittering in their games to emulate the visual aesthetic of the original PlayStation. That's fine. Okay, so this I do like, you know, for these overlays. So this is the background is one texture, and then what we see on the front here, same way that Resident Evil on the PlayStation did it, is they have another image on top of that, basically a PNG with transparency. Now, they've upscaled this pretty decently. It kind of feels like they've clamped the it's the transparency shader that they're using. I think they're using cutout. So in Unity, if this is in Unity, it means that they're using the transparency cutout, which results in very hard, harsh edges. I would have liked to have seen what this looks like without the cutout shader. For the transparency, I would have liked to have seen it with something else, because it's just a little jarring. For example, you see the bookshelf on that bottom left corner over there? See how the transition from the bookshelf to the ground is smooth? It's not like a hard cutoff. But when you see, say for example, the sculpture on the table in front of the character has a hard cutoff, so it lacks visual consistency and cohesion. A little bit disappointing, but it's not really a bit. I'm gonna kidnap the queen. I miss Final Fantasies when they were made for people like me, but they're not. Final Fantasy isn't made for people like me anymore, and that's fine. You've got to learn to grow and just grow up, you know, and get over it. I really like turn-based battle systems. I really like having a game that's a story that revolves around a party and not just a single character that has a bunch of followers. And I miss that about Final Fantasy. I miss the turn-based battle system. I missed the party-based story, that, you know, the ensemble cast. But, you know, that's okay. I've had a bunch of Final Fantasies growing up. We can go ahead and skip this. How do we skip this? Oh, your pixels are showing, Grandpa. This is pre-rendered. This is a movie sequence. That's why it looks like that. So those characters back there, the reason why they look so jagged is because those were not models. That was a full motion video, an FMV, pre-rendered movie. There's nothing they can do about that other than use AI upscaling, which they didn't do. They're using what looks like bilinear filtering here to just upscale it. Slightly disappointing, only because I know that the fan mods that you can get online look incredible. And there's probably some business an efficacy reason for not using AI for upscaling. I think we should be using AI for upscaling and enhancement. I don't think we should be using it for generative purposes when it comes to a commercial standpoint. Yes, people should have it for fun, for recreation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In a commercial setting, generatives, I believe there's efficacy issues and cultural issues that we need to prioritize art creation and trying to do better as creators and artists. And AI does not help us with that. AI gets in the way. But I'm saying that to be fair, you know. I'm not saying one way or the other. Definitely, it's gray, right? And we should have used AI to upscale this. See, here's where the cutout shader is not good. This is not. It results in visual incongruity. You see the blurring of the plant, how it's meant to blend in with the floorboards, but you can also see where the PNG has a hard cutoff. So they've used a cutout shader when I really feel like they should have just used a transparent shader so that they could have softly and seamlessly blended the boundary of that. So I'm a little bit disappointed to see that, but I am very pleased to see the higher resolution textures on the character. We don't see that harsh pixelation, which was very visible in the original. I'm not sure how much of this was in the original because this feels odd, but I'm walking into the wall and he's sliding along it like crazy. So I'm not sure how much of that was in the original. Is it full 360 range of movement? Yeah, full 360 range. In the original, you could use the D-pad for movement, and it looks like you still can. Okay, I don't want to though. I'll use the analog stick here. Okay. I wonder if they had considered how color is represented on modern devices and if they've taken that into account and adjusted for that, because I'm seeing some muddiness in the textures here. There is some... The depth of color, I think perhaps maybe they had not considered it because it feels muddy in the darker areas, and they could have manually touched this up, have artists go in and manually touch it up to introduce more dynamic contrast when it comes to the dark and the light areas, manually use the burn and the dodge tools that you have available in modern programs. Yes, it would have taken a bit of time, you know, that would have taken some time to do, but come on, this is Final Fantasy. You can afford to spend time on a Final Fantasy game. You can afford to spend time developing a video game, which is your job. And I'm not seeing that. They could have made this look better, and by better, I would say more visually expressive and interesting to look at. You would have a greater contrast between the lights and the darks. And I'm not saying this to sound like an angry fanboy and a complainer. I'm saying that they could have put in more work to make this look even better. And to me, it feels like they've just resized the visuals, which is slightly disappointing. I do really like this detail here. There are no real-time shadows in this framework that they're using, but there are darkened areas. So as you enter that, all of Vivi's character model is darkened. So that's quite nice to see. I like attention to detail like that. That's quite nice. It's not a real shadow. You're just darkening the characters, the main color value on their shader. Let's take a look. The character models are very pleasant to look at. They look like, at least with the NPCs, it doesn't look like they have a higher poly count than what they had on the PlayStation, but the textures certainly have been increased in resolution. I don't want to be a negative Nancy. I don't want to complain. There's visual inconsistency due to inconsistent pixel density, and this is a huge problem that was very visible with the Final Fantasies 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 that were brought to mobile platforms, and I only have violently negative things to say about those things, so I will not speak on that matter because I don't want to harsh anyone's vibe. But those games were not... I'm not talking about the Pixel remasters, I'm talking before that. Those games were not competently built. They had inconsistent pixel density throughout the entire thing, and it just looked like a total nightmare. But that I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but it's... my rage is seeping out. I'm allowed because I've been buying Final Fantasy games my entire life. I have been supporting Final Fantasy my entire life, so I'm allowed. But what is going on here? There appears to be some incongruity here, because the way that this glass is placed, it looks like it's floating in midair. It doesn't look like it's sitting on the ground because of its placement compared to the chair, and now I can't check on it. That's not right. Is that placed there in error? I got a flan card. I don't care that much. Okay, so this, I don't know why that goblet or whatever, that wine glass is there, but it's not placed correctly. Fascinating. Very fascinating. Can you do card games like right off the bat? Right, okay, so that's new. Is the indicator that lets you know that you can play card games. I don't recall that from the original at all. Hey, Boydie. Boydie. Okay. This hippo kid. Oh man, look at this hippo kid's eyes. This kid. Oh, look at his face. Okay. I'm not hippo shaming. I wouldn't. I'm better than that. Okay, balloon, give me that balloon. I want to steal that from you. Okay. I'm slightly disappointed to see how low density and how... I don't want to use the word lazy, but I would like to say how... I would say an ill-considered use of upscaling filtering for the backgrounds. And that's, you know, I can leave that topic there because I've already said what I've had to say about it. This is... See, this is all high resolution, you know, you look at the pixel density of the menu here, all consistent. The pixel density of the 3D models is quite high. And then you get to the backgrounds and it's not consistent. And then you have this, where the overlay layer is incoherent in what it is saying. They shouldn't have used the cutout shader on that. Okay, let's continue. Finger, what the hell? Ah, Final Fantasy VII players will know what that means. I'm inside you now. I'm inside you. Am I supposed to be able to go inside this man? You know what? I think I have noticed that a couple times. I've gone inside people. Let's see. If you try to walk into somebody long enough, you can walk inside them. I don't recall that from the original, and I don't know why that would have been implemented. Perhaps it was a failsafe. I feel like that would have been a failsafe. Oh man, I don't want to have to complain. I don't want to have to say negative things about this. You know what? I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this section lasts longer than all of Dragon Quest VII. I'm looking at the texture for Vivi. There's some filtering going on. They didn't just increase the resolution of it. There is some filtering. They use some sort of Photoshop filtering to make it look like it's hand-painted. No doubt they would have done that in order to obscure the pixelation that you would have seen, because the original textures are quite low resolution. I think that looks very good. They've done well. The back of the hat looks different as well. I feel like perhaps I should have paid closer attention to Zidane. No, 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 I don't want to get roped into this. Roped. Okay, I don't want to get roped into that. All right, I'll skip ahead. It just saved my game, and it was very sluggish. It felt like it took a long time to get through the save process. I don't want to complain, right? I'm not here to be like an angry video game nerd. So that's irritating. It made sense on the original PlayStation because it was a slow read-write process for the memory card, but we don't have that problem these days. And if they've remade this, why did they choose to make it so sluggish? I got Miguel. I don't remember that being there. I guess I never checked it before. Actually, it's two other bird nests now that I went to, and they had some gil for me. Cool, 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 cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna have a look at the character models. See, Zidane's tail has some harshness to it, so I don't think they would have updated the rigs. I think they would have used whatever data they had for animating and posing and all that, but it's possible that the character model for Zidane does have higher poly count. It looks like Vivi's does. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to go back and look. It's been so long since I've looked at the original. But I know that for Final Fantasy VIII Remaster, they did not increase the poly count on the characters at all. Ooh, I should be using special effects, huh? Can we Game Shark this so we can do the whole game with just special effects? Cinna sucks. Is this a new joke? I don't recall Cinna constantly dying like this, so I don't know if that's a joke. I'm looking. This Zidane has a higher poly count than the original. And if I'm wrong, then I guess I've remembered the original incorrectly, but that looks like it's a higher poly count. And the more I look at this, the more I see evidence that this could have been made in the Unity engine. I am seeing that more and more. Am I supposed to? I've done special effects quite a few times now. You know, there's nothing really all that special about the particle effects and the particle systems. It's going to look consistent across different game engines. There's a sluggishness with the frame rate. Why is that? This is a very simple game that uses basic unlit shaders. The shader is the part of the programming code that tells the game engine how geometry is supposed to be rendered. These models are all unlit. Unlit is the easiest type of shader, which means they don't calculate light, shadows, or reflections. So it's almost free. It's basically free. You know, on modern hardware, it's basically free to render geometry at low poly count. This is a skinned mesh at low poly count with an unlit texture renderer, no normal mapping, no specular mapping. So this is the easiest, the cheapest way to render a game. And I cannot understand why the frame rate is so choppy during battles. It's really sluggish, and I don't want to sound like a complainer. Again, that's not my intention here. I'm sharing my honest response with you. My honest reaction is it's kind of disappointing to see the performance during battle so choppy. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm going to try and do this thing. Let's see if I don't mess this up. X, B, X. What? Why did it change style? Why doesn't it say A? That's very disorienting. It should say A, but instead it goes to that face button chart. This is so... See, that's disorienting. I don't like this. I don't like what's happening. That's the D-pad. I'm supposed to press the D-pad, but that's not what the D-pad looks like. I'm getting a little angry because that's not what the D-pad looks like. I'm trying to be positive here, but that's very poor. That's a very poor understanding of how your end user interprets the instructions and the visual input, or the visual feedback. This is me trying to not be angry, but that's really bad. That's not what the D-pad looks like. We know that's not what the D-pad looks like. That's what the face button looks like. We know that the face button instructions look a certain way, and what they've done is they've used the face button instructions, but it's confusing because they've already shown us the button prompts. I'm gonna skip this part of the video because it's really frustrating me. Wow, it's so awesome getting to see the character models. They were always very low definition in the original, so it's great getting to see the character models detailed like this. That's already a huge benefit to this, and I think if you're going to play this, you just have to turn off and not think about how inconsistent the presentation is in terms of the visuals. It's visually very messy. You're just gonna have to live with it. So here, to animate the uh, the candlelight here, they've used particle systems, so that's not part of the environment. That is why they can have higher pixel density on that. They're just using basic particle additive shaders on that, and the particle system is emitting particles, and the size of the particle shrinks over its lifetime, and it is set to have upward movement upon being generated. It's very simple. It's funny because the particle system on these two are actually, they look like they're a different particle system. They didn't just copy and paste these two and bring it over to the other one. It's a different looking. It's funny that the text that they use on screen is lower resolution as well. They could have just remade those, but what I think they did was, I think they copy and pasted the original PNG files basically for the text, and that's why it's so pixelated. When they really should have just matched the font and then just done them over again, and it wouldn't have taken that long for all of the stuff that's in the game. You know, less than an hour tops to regenerate, to make new. Okay, I have been feeling a little negatively towards Final Fantasy over the past few years when it comes to their remasters, and I really wanted this one to make me feel different. I wanted this one to make me feel like they put in a lot of effort and a lot of time, but I'm not seeing. Oh geez, I'd hate having to be negative about stuff, but I don't feel very positively about this remaster because I see so many instances where if they had wanted to, they could have had the presentation end up significantly better. The end product would have been so much better, and they just didn't do those things. But I'm not here to be a complainer, to be negative. I think people can really enjoy this. I think what they have done is quite good. I think in consideration for, you know, they allow you to speed up battles, I think, or something like that. It looks like the method that they used for texture compression on the text boxes, you see that this sort of purpling, the discoloration on that, it looks like that's the result of texture compression, and you see splotchiness and uneven distribution of the pixelation pattern in there. I don't want to have to be negative about this. I don't want to be a negative Nancy. If I were just playing this, I probably wouldn't notice that, but as a developer, that does not look right. Yeah, I think that they did increase the poly count. They've smoothened out the model. They probably subdivided the model for the player characters, and it looks good. I really like the way that the player character models look. Oh, what? So Steiner doesn't get to play cards with people? Steiner doesn't get the card prompt? Let's have a look at the particles on the chandelier. Yeah, they were able to just copy and paste the particle system from the candles from the other room. They copy and paste the particle system and put them on the chandelier. Nice way to animate that. I'd have to go back and look at the original to see how they did it. They may have achieved the effect in a very similar manner. Oh, these candles here, these don't get particle effects? It's because they're too low resolution and pixelated. And if they had upscaled it in a better method, it wouldn't look like that. I really don't want to say negative things about this. I really want to say that this looks fantastic. I want to say that they've done a brilliant job, but the problem is that fans have done mods that look way, way, way better. And when I say better, I mean more coherent, more consistent. And that's the problem here, is the inconsistent pixel density. If the whole thing were lower resolution, if all the models were the same pixel density as the backgrounds, I would not be making such a big deal about this. But it's not good, and this is a problem that they've had with all of their Final Fantasy remasters, is they have not been assembled competently. I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. I want this series to be as good as it can be. I want it to be as great as it can be. And I think this is a product. That's the most positive thing that I can say. I think this is a product. And I hope you don't get the wrong idea here. I hope you don't think I'm here to just make fun of this and bash this. I'm discussing this from an educational and a technical standpoint, and I feel that they did use Unity for this. Um, just, there's a couple visual quirks. How did they implement their blob shadows on this? Let me see if I can figure it out. So, they've got a quad beneath the character, and it has the... Dude, busy. They have quads beneath the characters, and it just has a transparent texture of a circle. It's very simple. Your parents did it, your grandparents did it. Everyone's been doing shadows that way for a long time. You'll see that the shadow never clips into the environment because this is not real geometry. This is just a background texture. But you'll see that Steiner's shadow doesn't deform in any way. But interesting here. Okay, hold on. It's not... His shadow is kind of not that vibrant here. But as you go up the steps, the shadow becomes more visible. Why is that? That's interesting. I'm not sure if it... Interesting. This is not just a transparent shader. I believe that they're using multiply. Maybe they're alpha blending. Because sometimes it's more intense and more visible. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to cover for today. Thanks very much for spending some time with me today. I really hope this didn't come across as me just complaining about the game, but I'm not complaining about the game itself. I want Final Fantasy to be good. I just want Final Fantasy to be good. Let me know if there's any other games you would like me to cover. If there's any Final Fantasy remasters that you would like me to take a look at and discuss, let me know. And if you would like to contribute to the channel, I do have a Patreon as well, and that will go towards me picking up more games for us to discuss on the channel. Look, I don't know if I'm going to play through it like this. I feel like I should have bought it on the PC and then installed the fan mod pack for the HD upscaling, because I think the fans cared more, and I think the fans put in way more effort than what I see here. Take care, everyone. Thanks very much. All right. We'll see you around.